Morning, everybody, and thank you very much for attending our meeting this morning. We won't do formal introductions at this stage. Just as you speak, you might introduce yourself, and I think it would be very helpful to say your name and a little bit about where you come from, because that will help us all to understand the perspective from which we're sharing opinions and making suggestions. So I'll model that by starting with myself. My name is Suzanne Dillon, and I'm the Irish representative to the OECD's Global Forum on the Future of Education and Skills 2030. That's a mouthful. I nearly need to take a breath after saying that. The Global Forum has been working since 2015, and we were charged by the Education Policy Subcommittee of the OECD to answer two questions. The first question was, what do young people need to be learning in schools in order to be able to thrive in the future? And we came up with an answer to that question by engaging the broadest range of stakeholders we could find. So we had students, teachers, teacher educators, NGOs, for-profit, philanthropies, everybody who could justifiably argue that they were stakeholders in education came on board. And so we typically have anywhere between, in terms of national or juridical representation, anywhere between 28 and 42 countries participating in the project at any one time, and up to about 350 individuals participating. So it's a very big and open group. And because we take a multi-stakeholder perspective, that means we don't do anything quickly. It's international, and one of the first things we had to learn was that your perspective and the suggestions that you make really come from the place you live, and how you are situated yourself and the kinds of socio-cultural, economic and political considerations. So that meant it took us until 2019 to answer the first question. And we answered it by way of a metaphor. We developed what we call our learning compass, and we chose the metaphor of the compass because it captured our consensual agreement that actually education is a journey. It doesn't end. Learning is something you do from the moment you draw your first breath. And actually, I think some science is beginning to reveal that maybe prior to then, until you draw your last. And who's to say what happens after that? So there's a lot that we don't yet know. And so we use the compass. But in order to navigate through that kind of uncertainty and that kind of, I suppose, volatility that there is in the world today, you need some guiding principles. So our learning compass includes, for example, the suggestion that curriculum should at least include what we call the core competencies, and they are the traditional literacies and numeracy, but they include literacies such as health literacy, financial literacy, and digital literacy. So they're broader than just learning how to read and write. But in addition to those foundational or core literacies, we also are very strongly committed to what we call transformative competencies. And we have 3 transformative competencies. And you can tell, I'm sure, just from the way I'm talking, that these are very broad painted competencies because they're reflecting a very broad range of perspectives. So the first one is about creating new value. And captured in that set of competencies is the notion of exploring the world, discovering difficulties or problems, and finding ways to address those. Excuse me. And in doing that, adding to the wealth of knowledge and understanding that is there in the world. The second one is about taking responsibility. And that transformative competence really speaks to the piece of understanding myself not only as an individual, but as somebody in society. And the community in which I live lives in a bigger community, and eventually the global community, and the impact that I have, and taking responsibility for that. So it includes concepts around morality and ethics. And the third transformative competence then is really around managing tension and dilemma. And to me, that brings us straight away into the Flourishing Schools piece, because tensions and dilemma are part of everyday life. Once we accept that knowledge is not something immutable, but that it continues to grow, develop, change, things that we took as certainties in the past, we now dismiss. So, for example, we thought the world was flat. We didn't understand the nature of humanity to the extent that we do now. And so that tells us that we have no idea what we're going to think and believe and know in 50 years' time or in 100 years' time. And there's a great deal of excitement to be captured in that realization, but there's also a great deal of fear and uncertainty. And so young people need to be supported to learn how to navigate uncertainty, how to deal with it, how to be comfortable with uncertainty, and how to understand that what they are convinced they know now might actually change. And that really brings us very close to what the Flourishing Schools project is about. It's about providing those kinds of learning experiences which really provide students with opportunities that excite their curiosity, that engage their activity and engage their thinking and their imagination, that encourage deep learning and an awareness of consequence, of alternative, and finally, that helps them to debate, to grow, and to flourish, to go to their potential. So that's one of the reasons I'm very excited to be part of this project. There seem to me to be so many correspondences between it.